Hello everybody out there watching on YouTube, and welcome to the 5th race of Season 4 of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series. I'm Levi McIntyre, the voice of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series, here to welcome you to the Home Depot 400 at Arizona Speedway as we're getting set for the finale of the West Coast Swing, and this is a very important race for a good amount of drivers to try and get themselves locked in the top 30 in points for next week at Michigan. But before we look at the starting lineup, we of course got to take a look at the point standings. So after last week at Sonoma, Carson Gum takes the points lead over. Second is Charles Sanford. Third is DJ Curtis. Fourth, Trent Dunham. And then fifth, Johnny Gardner. William Brock. Sixth is Johnny Gardner. Seventh, Seth Cole. Eighth, Sean Galligan. Ninth, Joshua Sekuli. And then 10th, Dylan Young. The reason why this race is so important for some drivers is because some drivers who are outside the top 30 in points, who aren't rookies, are trying to get some good finishes here tonight, so that way they can try and get in the top 30 in points to get themselves locked into a race, as opposed to having to qualify their way in via knockout qualifying. But let's take a look at the starting lineup. Starting in the last row will be Alex Gray and Joshua Collard. Top 10, Trent Dunham is on the pole. Starting next to him is Jay Jefferson. Row 2 is Jake Baskinger, Paul Minnick. Row 3, Jessica Sheldon, Dylan Young. Row 4, Zachary Fitzwater, James Richardson. And then row 5, Dylan Thoreau and Benjamin Miles. Let's go ahead and get the command to fire engines for the Home Depot 400 at Arizona.
Drivers, start your engines!
All 42 cars are on track for their one pace lap. Now, the interesting thing with this racetrack is very, very similar to tracks such as Kentucky Speedway, Kansas Speedway, and Las Vegas Motor Speedway in terms of the shape. Racing-wise, it tends to be a little bit like a combination of Las Vegas and Kansas. However, this may be the most aggressive of the cookie-cutter mile-and-a-half racetracks, only because more wrecks occur here, and that's because these drivers like to race really, really hard. But we'll see how it all turns out here today at Arizona, and this is the finale of the West Coast Swing before we get back to normal scheduling. Pace car into pit road, and you know what time it is? It's time to boogity, 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 go racing! Trent Dunham leads the first lap here at Arizona and actually has a bit of a gap now between himself and second place, who is now Jessica Sheldon. She takes second from Jay Jefferson for the time being. So meanwhile, right now we got a battle for fourth. Dylan Young goes by Jake Baskinger for the position, as Trent Dunham still hanging on up here at the front, so he has led all 2 laps so far in this race. Meanwhile, the battle for second continues to rage on between Sheldon and Jefferson. Jefferson trying to use the bottom, but it looked like Sheldon was able to use the outside lane off of turn 2 to her advantage to keep that spot at bay. We might have 3 wide here for fourth between Fiegel, Young, and Minnick, as they are going at it pretty good back here. Although, because they're racing so hard, they're losing time to the top 3. Jefferson trying to get clear of Sheldon. Let's see if he can get clear in the middle of 3 and 4. And it looks like he will, so Jay Jefferson moves back up to second, as Trent Dunham's still hanging on to a steady lead here in the early going. And as per getting the pole and then leading the first lap, he got 2 extra bonus points. And bonus points are key to strategy in the point standings this season, especially considering the chase being in play this season. We are actually changing the chase format up just a touch. We are going to do top 12 in points this season and 2 wild cards. So altogether we would have 14 drivers in the chase this season. So a bit of a hybrid of previous chase systems as opposed to the crappy newer one that we have in NASCAR currently, but that's around the point. Meanwhile, Trent Dunham's lead has just been cut as Jay Jefferson's starting to reel in Trent Dunham for the lead. Jessica Sheldon kind of trying to keep up with the top 2 as Paul Minnick's been slowly creeping his way into the picture for himself, and now he might have the challenge. Although Trent shut the door on Jefferson for that move. But Jefferson's still right on the back bumper of Trent Dunham, but he's just having a hard time trying to get a big enough run to go onto the bottom and make it stick. Jay trying to go for a lower lane in corner entry, but it's just not really working out for him quite just yet. Although Jefferson might have something, here he comes. First lead change of the day. Jay Jefferson goes to the point, and now Trent Dunham may be under fire from a couple more cars to fall back to 4th. Sheldon and Minnick are right there, and I see more cars trying to work their way. Kyle Matthews is currently in the 5th position. He's been slowly creeping in on the top 4. Excuse me. But right now, Jay Jefferson's got a nice margin separating himself from new second-place driver Paul Minnick. It's a little over half a second right now, but a lot of drivers are starting to reel in the top 2. Tim Fiegel's back up here in the mix, but how about Matt McIntyre, the defending series champion? He's up here into the mix. And how about Dylan Jacobs? I think I saw on the starting grid he started around mid-pack, towards, or more like in the second half of the midway portion of the pack, around like 27th. And he's already moved himself up into the top 10, so solid run right now for that 78. And right now the highest running rookie, Richard Johnson. Great run going right now here in the early going for that 93 car from Retro Racing Enterprises. Zach Flickinger, it looked like he went on by a couple cars to get into the top 10. As right now, battle for 11th, Phil Parker trying to clear the points leader, Carson Gum. And here comes Ryan Brommer, the rookie in the number 17, to try and make something work. Back up here at the front of the field, Jay Jefferson still hangs on, but quite a few cars are creeping up on him. Paul Minnick is right there on the back bumper. Could he try to go for a move for himself at any moment? Checking out the back of the field as meanwhile battle for 41st goes on between Joshua Collard and Benjamin Miles. Some notable drivers I see back here. Dollarton has been slipping back quite a good ways. Rafael LeDuc currently was last scored in 34th, though I think he's probably gone up a few spots, but he's trying to do his best to try and make his way up through the field. Seth Cole, who finished in 3rd last week after he dominated the first half of Sonoma and had a miscue on his pit stop at the halfway point of the race, and it cost him the win. Right now, not really having the best day for himself, and Len, last week's winner, James Qualls is all the way back here in 26th. So overall, not too great of a day for him right now. Wow, 3 wide, and I don't know what spot this is for. This might be for the 6th position, as I saw Fiegel slip way, way back. Kyle Matthews now battling Paul Minnick for position on track. Jay Jefferson still leads the way, but Jessica Sheldon's back in 2nd. Trying to close the gap on the 87. Trent Dunham trying to get caught back up. He's up to 3rd. Kyle Matthews in 4th, and then Paul Minnick 5th. And now Richard Johnson's moved up a few spots. He's up to 6th. Dylan Jacobs up now in 7th. 8th, Tim Fiegel. 9th, Matt McIntyre. And then 10th is Zach Flickinger. 11th, Ryan Brommer. 12th, Phil Parker. 13th, Carson Gump. 14th, Sky Comets. 15th, Anthony McCrory. 16th is Dylan Thoreau. 17th, Dylan Poteet. 18th, Dorian Facepuncher. 19th, Matt Haas. 20th, Dylan Young. 21st, Joshua Sekuli. 22nd, Preston Plord. 23rd is Devin Becker. 24th, James Qualls. 25th is Alex Gray. 26th, James Shelley. 27th, James Richardson. 28th, Seth Cole. 29th, James McLeod. 30th, Emmanuel Hartnett. 31st, Rafael LeDuc. 32nd, Pichu London. 33rd, DJ Curtis. 34th, Zachary Fitzwater. 35th, Joshua Collard. 36th, Charles Sanford. 37th, Jonathan Zorline. 38th is Johnny Gardner. 39th is Sean Galligan. 40th is Jake Baskinger. Then 41st, Chris Dollarton. 42nd, Benjamin Miles. This car's slowing down on track, and I think that is a sign that we got pit stops underway, and a majority of the cars in the field are on pit road, and only very few stayed out. Jay Jefferson, the leader, elected to stay out, but he's slowing down. He's going to come into pit road. Jefferson is in, although I see Sekuli, he's staying out another lap to get a bonus point. So right now, Sekuli, I think... No, Emmanuel Hartnett's still out, and I think they're the only two yet to come into pit road. Though you can tell, if this stays green the rest of the way, we're going to see some interesting pit strategy take place. Sekuli and Hartnett pitting 2 laps later than the first group, and then 1 lap later from the second group. And now they both come into pit road. And who even knows who's going to be the leader? Will Jefferson keep the spot? Although Dylan Jacobs actually beats out Jefferson out of pit road. So if things... Well, now Jessica Sheldon goes on by. So Sheldon, if she can get cycled around over the 82 and the 20, she could take the race lead away. Phil Parker, Paul Minnick actually staying in the pits. I guess they must have come back in. Something must have happened with their first stop. But yes, Jessica Sheldon now takes the top spot as things cycle around. So now let's look at the field to see how it looks after the first round of pit stops. Jessica Sheldon is your leader. Second is Dylan Jacobs. Third is Richard Johnson. Fourth is Jay Jefferson. Fifth, Kyle Matthews. Sixth, Ryan Brommer. Seventh, Matt McIntyre. Eighth, Tim Fiegel. Ninth, Zach Flickinger. 10th is Trent Dunham. 11th now is Sky Commons. 12th is Carson Gum. 13th, Dorian Facepuncher. 14th, Matt Haas. 15th, Joshua Sekuli. 16th, Dylan Poteet. 17th, Devin Becker. 18th is Dylan Thoreau. 19th, Alex Gray. 20th is James Shelley. 21st is James McLeod. 22nd, Rafael LeDuc. 23rd, James Richardson. 24th, Preston Plord. 25th, Emmanuel Hartnett. 26th, Seth Cole. 27th is James Qualls. 28th is Joshua Collar. 29th, Phil Parker. 30th, Pichu London. 31st, Dylan Young. 32nd, Jonathan Zorline. 33rd, Anthony McCurry. 34th, Sean Galligan. 35th, Chris Dollarton. 36th is Zachary Fitzwater. 38th, Johnny Gardner. 39th, Paul Minnick. Although I could be wrong, I think Minnick's a lap down. Yeah, he is. So actually make that 36th being Johnny Gardner. Then 37th, Charles Sanford. 38th, Jake Baskinger. 39th, Benjamin Miles. 40th, DJ Curtis, with Phil Parker and Paul Minnick being a lap down. But we got a new leader up at the front as some cars caught Jessica Sheldon, and Richard Johnson takes the top spot right now. Dylan Jacobs actually moves up to second over Shelton, even though he was second a little while ago. He just got by Sheldon, but just got passed by Johnson. But Jacobs right on the 93's rear end. Meanwhile, this battle for fifth, I've noticed, has been ongoing ever since those pit stops have concluded. Kyle Matthews and Jay Jefferson trying to battle out for a fifth place run right now. Jefferson managed to use the outside lane off turn 2, but Matthews, I don't know, he actually just lost some momentum. So Jefferson was actually able to use the outside line to stay clear of the 42. Ryan Brahmer, kind of the middleman between the top 3 and the rest of the field. Meanwhile, back up here at the front, Richard Johnson still leading the way, as Dylan Jacobs is right behind him, double checking to make sure we're still green, and we are, which is good. But yeah, Jessica Sheldon, she's been starting to free fall a little bit. She's been losing time gradually to the top 2. She's fallen back to less than 3/4 of a second behind the top 2. Although, could she be playing the conservative strategy and conserve her gas and tires for the next pit stop if they were to have another pit stop before the end of the race? Let's look at the lap time differences between the top 2 to see who stacks up where. Richard Johnson ran last time at 27.972. Dylan Jacobs at 28.014. So last time by, it was Richard Johnson who was the fastest of the top 2. And it looks like he'll be faster again because the margin's grown a little bit. Let's see who has the fastest lap on track overall. According to the scoring there, James McLeod has the fastest lap at 27.548. They're still clean and green, and it's 11 laps to go here at Arizona. And like I said, you gotta wonder if and when these drivers have to pit another time. And I'm expecting the drivers to come into pit road within the next 5 to 6 laps, because I do not think they'll be able to have enough gas to make it the rest of the way. I really don't see that, because most of the drivers pitted on lap 18 of 41, second group pitted on lap 19 of 41, and then Sekuli and Hartnett pitted on lap 20. So I feel as though we're going to see pit stops begin probably on lap 36, which is when we get to the line here. It will be in 4 more laps, I should say. But yeah, just look at Jessica Sheldon. You can definitely tell she's either trying to be conservative or she's just not really running all that well. She continues to slip back. Dylan Jacobs been still keeping up with Richard, but just still not able to reel in the 93. Look at the lap times between the top 2. And Richie was 15 thousandths of a second faster than Dylan Jacobs. Jessica Sheldon's less than 0.3 of a second slower, or more than 0.3 of a second slower than the top two. And then Sheldon has a 2-second advantage over Ryan Brommer, who has had some company come into play, but then none have just been able to get around him quite just yet. And speaking of battles, we got a battle going on now for the 5th position. Trent Dunham gonna go on by real easily over Jay Jefferson. And look at the points leader, Carson Gum. He's found his way up here in the top 10 now. Seems like the big battles are going on from 4th on back. Sheldon's sort of the middle person. And then Dylan Jacobs been trying to figure out how to get to Richard Johnson. And according to lap times, 78 was a little bit faster, but I'm expecting here about now for the next round of pit stops to take place. Either this time or next time by. And I hear Sheldon slowing down, so it sounds like she's going to pull in first. So Sheldon comes in to pit road with 5 laps to go, but nobody else is coming in. It's only her, although no, teammate James Qualls comes in. Looks like Chris Dollarton is in as well, and Jake Baskinger, Benjamin Miles, and DJ Curtis. And now Richard is going to slow down to come into pit road and sacrifice the lead over to Dylan Jacobs. Dylan Jacobs right now leads with less than 4 laps to go. Now he better hope he can get to pit road this time and try and have a fast enough pit stop to where he can cycle around to the lead. Otherwise, he might lose a few spots, maybe more, depending on what happens with his pit stop. And he's getting ready to come in, and then there's a lot of other drivers stayed out an extra lap. And there's Sakuli. As expected, he's one of the last ones I'm expecting to come into pit road. Now the question is he going to try and stretch it out? Same with Emmanuel Hardnett. He's the other one that stayed out. Just as I expected these two to be the last ones to pit. Now, will they pit or will they try and risk it all to go for the win? Sakuli, sounds like he can't make it. Same with Hardnett, so they're not going to be able to make it the rest of the way. Now, can they somehow, by some miracle, cycle to the lead again? I don't really think that will be possible, but it'll be something. Sakuli, it looks like he just went with gas only. Same with Hartnett. That might be a difference maker. I don't know. It's going to be close. But as I can tell, I think Richard Johnson got way out ahead. And I think he might get the lead back. And indeed he does. Richard Johnson takes the lead back with less than 2 laps to go. And he's got a huge gap separating himself from Dylan Jacobs. So as long as Richie doesn't screw up his lap here, he'll be home free as the white flag is being displayed. White flag is out here at Arizona, and Richard Johnson, let's see at the line how big of a lead he has. Nearly 4.5 seconds. Nearly 4.5 seconds ahead of the 78. Like I said, all Richie's got to do is just keep his car on the racetrack, and he'll be home free, and it looks like he will be home free. Coming out of turn 4 for the final time. Checkered flag waving. Richard Johnson wins the Home Depot 400 at Arizona Speedway. Strategy came into play at the end, and Richard Johnson managed to rise above all else to get his first career win in the Marvel Studios Cup Series for the NNSCRA. And also the first rookie to go to victory lane this season, so that's pretty big as well. But let's look at the rest of the results. Dylan Jacobs, great finish in the 2nd position, so that's definitely going to boost him high up in the point standings. Joshua Sakuli tried to go for the bold strategy at the end, but just didn't have enough gas to try and finish out strong. But still gets a great run in the 3rd position. Ryan Brommer with a solid run in the 4th position, and then points leader Carson Gump finishes 5th, and it's most likely he's going to keep the points lead going into next week at Michigan. Trent Dunham with a solid run in the 6th position. Dylan Poteet came out of nowhere to get a top 10 in 7th. Zach Flickinger with a great run in 8th. Sky Comets finishes out in 9th. And then Emmanuel Hartnett, who was in the back most of the day. The strategy at the end must have paid off because he got a top 10 in 10th. Rest of the top 20 was Matt Haas, Tim Fiegel, Jay Jefferson, Rafael LeDuc, Jessica Sheldon, Alex Gray, James Shelley, Kyle Matthews, James Richardson, Sean Galligan. Rest of the top 30 was James McLeod, Devin Becker, Dorian Facepuncher, Seth Cole, Joshua Collard, Pichu London, Zachary Fitzwater, Johnny Gardner, Preston Plord, Chris Dollarton. Rest of the top 40 was Dylan Young, Dylan Thoreau, Charles Sanford, James Qualls, Matt McIntyre, Jonathan Zorline, Jake Baskinger, Anthony McCrory, Benjamin Miles, DJ Curtis, and then 2 cars a lap down, Phil Parker and Paul Minnick. Well, that does it for our coverage here today at Arizona, and that does it for the West Coast swing. We get back to normal schedule racing next week at Michigan. But until then, here are your results. Rookie points and regular points heading into Michigan. And this is Levi McIntyre signing off.